Hi, everyone, and welcome to Ncarb Live. Today, we'll be providing you with a final overview of exam changes, technological requirements and specifications, and key takeaways before the launch this upcoming Monday, December 14th. We'll also share tips to prepare you for the updated exam and answer any remaining questions you may have. I'm Saul Alberto, and I'm joined by two of Ncarb's exam experts. So we have Jared Zern, who's Vice President of Examination.
Hello.
And then Michelle Cohen, Assistant Vice President of Examination here at Ncarb.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you both for being here today. So before we go straight into answering some questions, what is one hot topic you'd each like candidates to fully understand by the end of this webinar?
Well, I'll start. I think one key topic candidates should understand is you'll need to give yourself time to set up your remote testing area. So the online proctored option that's going to be launching on Monday, and candidates should be able to test in that pretty soon afterwards. We've got a lot of really helpful tips on our website, videos, new blogs. Really watch those and make sure that you give yourself adequate time to just get your physical space set up. Best to give yourself more time to get that done and then know that you are set and ready to go, rather than feeling like you need to kind of rush to get things ready the day of your exam.
Awesome. Jared?
Salo, I guess my one hot topic would be to also have candidates remember that the content of the exam isn't changing. So the way you've prepared in the past is the way you're going to prepare in the future. The reality that the division lengths are getting a little bit shorter. We've been able to reduce the number of items that you're going to see when you test and expand the time. That's great, but the content stays the same. So you still need to know what you need to know, regardless of whether you tested last week or whether you're going to test 2 or 3 weeks from now.
Cool. So we look forward to sharing that information and more with you all over the next hour. Viewers, you can submit your questions at any time through the Q&A tool on your screen. We know you all have a lot of questions and concerns, so we ask that you help us find and answer as many as possible by only submitting each question once in the Q&A tool. If we don't answer your question today, feel free to contact Ncarb on our website or the online community. And if you have to sign off early, you can definitely watch the full webinar later on our blog or YouTube channel. So without further ado, let's go ahead and open things up for Q&A. Remember, you can submit your question in the chat tool on your screen. So I think we're going to start off with Jared. So this one's for you, Jared. Is there any way Ncarb or Prometric is able to check/approve the space before the day of the exam?
So at this time, that is not something that is available. So what you'll want to do if you are going to schedule an online exam, we suggest that you look at the proctoring guidelines that are available. We have links to those in our ARE guidelines that talk about the setup requirements, and then go ahead and just set them up per those requirements. What you also can do before test day is you can download the Prometric application. So you can go to their website, you can download the software, it will check your system, it will make sure it's working. But as far as being able to go through like a pseudo check-in procedure, that's not available now. What I will tell you is we've actually asked Prometric for that because we think that'd be a great benefit to the candidates. And so they're actively working on that right now. So we look forward to hearing more about that in the future as an additional benefit or opportunity for candidates.
Great, thanks for that answer. So I'm going to give this one to you, Michelle. Are we allowed to use a pen, tablet, or trackpad instead of a mouse?
Okay, that is a great question. And I assume this person is specifically wondering with the whiteboard, wondering if there's another way to use that whiteboard. I can say that a trackpad, for instance, on your laptop, that would be allowed if you are using your laptop monitor to take the test. I know some of our communications have mentioned that dual monitors are not allowed, but if candidates want to test on a larger monitor, and we do recommend 19-inch monitor or larger, candidates can actually close their laptop lid and use the external monitor. However, if candidates are going to be testing on their laptop, then yes, you can use the trackpad on your laptop. As far as a stylus tablet type thing, I'm going to say no on that one. A lot of those styluses do require software in order to run. And because of how the online proctoring software works, it actually locks down your computer, meaning that that other software required to work your stylus and tablet actually wouldn't function during your exam. So you will need to use a mouse, or again, if you're going to be using your laptop and just the monitor on your laptop, then you could use that trackpad.
Okay, thank you. Jared, this one's for you. Is there a maximum number of breaks candidates can take?
There is not. The break functionality has been updated and candidates can go play with this in the new demonstration exam. So there's no limit to the number of breaks you can take. You do have an amount of break time that if you were to take a lot of breaks, you could very easily use up your break time, but you can still do that. You can still take a break. If you use up your allotted break time, it will just start counting into your test time. So be aware of that fact.
Okay. Michelle, starting which day will candidates be able to take online exams?
Well, this starts with being able to schedule an online exam. So again, that is happening Monday morning, that candidates will be able to schedule those exams. And the same rules are going to apply for scheduling an online proctored exam as we have for scheduling a test center exam. So candidates are probably used to seeing that when they schedule an exam at the test center, it's at least 3 days out, are the earliest dates that are available to them. So that same rule is going to apply for your online proctored exams. It of course will also depend on proctor availability. I can say from all of the testing and here at Ncarb, we've had extensive testing among all the various staff here. We have not had any problems finding time slots to be able to conduct testing. So I'm confident that our candidates also should be able to test fairly soon, perhaps even within that first week, after they are able to get into the scheduling system.
Thank you. Jared, here's the next question. Will built-in cameras in our computer work for online proctoring?
So they will not. This is an important thing to understand, that you do need to have an external webcam to take an online proctored exam. And the reason for that is because the external webcam is going to allow the proctor to work with you to go through the readiness check-in procedure, where you're actually going to lift your camera up and move it around and show them the space in front of your monitor, the space behind your monitor, your computer cabling, and those kind of things. So the external camera is necessary. Built-in cameras would not allow for that much visibility.
Right. Thank you. Michelle, if I have scheduled an exam at a testing center, can I change to test remotely?
You sure can, with a couple caveats though. As I mentioned before about the same rules applying for scheduling an exam, the same rules also apply for rescheduling an exam. So if your test at a test center is within 4 business days, then no, you won't be able to reschedule to online proctoring because you just can't reschedule at all. However, if your appointment is farther out, then for sure, you can reschedule to an online proctored division. When you log into your record on Monday, the 14th, you will see that option to reschedule, and a pop-up will appear that says reschedule my existing appointment, stay at the test center, or change my existing appointment to instead be through the online proctored modality. You will likely need to pick a new day and time when you change to online proctored, but you will absolutely have that option. Right now, of course, we have waived reschedule fees, but once those are reinstated, the same fees will apply whether you're rescheduling from a test center appointment to a different test center appointment or switching from the test center to online proctored.
Great, thanks for that response. Jared, what happens if my Wi-Fi goes out during an online proctoring test?
So if your Wi-Fi is disconnected, or let's say the power goes out in where you're testing, any scenario like that where it severs the connection to the exam, what happens is the exam automatically goes into a paused state. So it just sort of sits there and waits for you to reconnect. This is actually one of the functionality pieces that we've tested multiple times in getting ready to deliver this for you. So what would happen is, when I've done this, I've been at testing in my home. I reached over, I unplugged my internet cable on purpose. I disconnected my computer, and my exam, it sort of sat on that question that I was on for a second, but then all of a sudden the screen went to just the Prometric gray, like Proctor screen, and said, like, please verify your internet connection. So what I ended up having to do is I went and I closed out of the Prometric browser. I plugged my network cable back in, let my network reconnect. Once I did that, then I ended up, I actually rebooted my computer. I reconnected through the Proctor confirmation number, just like I did originally to start my appointment. And then the Readiness Agent released me to the Proctor, and the Proctor, once they released me, I was right where I left off. I was back on the exact same question, and the time was still there.
Cool, thank you. So the next question is, does Ncarb have a list of technical and environmental requirements for online proctoring? And I know that Jared actually set up his space today kind of to mock up that question. So I don't know if Jared, if you want to answer that question.
I certainly can. So we have multiple resources available for our candidates. They can, like I said, if you go to the guidelines, it will give you links to Prometric's Pro Proctor requirements, as well as you'll get a link to the Ncarb requirements on top of it, which are really specialized for the ARE. We also have created a video that you can watch showing you sort of what it's like to set up your space, but I have an external webcam. I did prep my space to be ready for online testing today, so it's rather barren. And what will be expected is you will pick up your external webcam and you will show, like, this is how exciting it gets. There should be nothing on your desk. Now, admittedly, I have a glass of water because I'm doing a webinar. I do have my driver's license because you are going to have to show, now this isn't mine, this is a sample, but you are going to have to show your driver's license to the proctor as part of the check-in procedure. You will notice my laptop is closed and I am using an external monitor. I do have windows in the office, but I have those closed as well. So that's kind of the standard setup that we expect. The Readiness Agent will walk you through this process, though, of, oh, let me look at your desk. Okay, let me look behind your computer. Let me look at this, look at that. And so they will work with you too. Do not feel that this is going to be a, oh my gosh, you did something wrong and the proctor is going to cancel your appointment. Because the goal of the Readiness Agent is to get you checked in. They may ask you to remove some things, like if they felt the stuff behind me was a little suspicious, they could say, oh, can I take a look at that? Or just, can you remove it? And I would say, oh, sure, I'll just remove it. I'll put it in a cabinet.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that'll be very useful information for candidates today. Michelle, next question. Are there a limited number of people who can take an online proctored exam each day, like in-person test centers have limited spots?
So at test centers, of course, candidates are limited by just seat availability. And once that test center's seats have filled up, then no more candidates can be scheduled for that day. With online proctored exams, in a similar way, the only limitation is proctor availability. There has to be a proctor, an actual person who has time in their schedule to proctor your exam. I can say, as I mentioned before, so far we have seen ample availability with the Prometric online proctored option. And another thing to remember is that unlike test centers, online proctored divisions can be taken 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we're hoping for a lot of candidates, that's going to really open up the options for scheduling your exam, that if for you, you want to be able to get through your workday and then test at night. You want to be able to test on the weekend, and those are the hardest slots to find at your test center. Maybe an early morning time slot is best for you. Get that exam done, and then you're free by the time you have brunch. Whatever works for candidates, I think you'll see a lot more flexibility in scheduling with the online proctored option.
Great, thanks. Jared, this is the next question. If my monitor is less than 19 inches, can I still take the exam with this smaller monitor?
So the reality is you could. There's no we are clearly suggesting that you have a 19-inch or larger monitor, and that's because we understand that the graphics and especially the case studies do require some real estate to efficiently navigate them. So if you do test on less than a 19-inch monitor, what you're going to experience is you're going to experience the need to scroll more frequently, right? Left and right, because maybe a case study is wider than your screen, or up and down. Definitely you'll be scrolling up and down more. Now, the good news is if if you launch our demonstration exam, that is an example of what the ARE is going to be when you test. And when you launch the demonstration exam, there's the address bar across the top, right, which is the little HTTP. That you're not going to see in the test center, but that section of your screen is going to be replaced by the Prometric Proctor bar, where there's a chat button to connect with the proctor if you want to. So if you want to understand how the exam is going to function on a 17-inch or a 15-inch monitor, just do the demonstration exam. Because what you're experiencing with the demonstration exam is what you will experience when you go to take the real ARE.
Great, thanks. Michelle, here's the next question. Can I take an online proctored exam on a Mac?
Yes, you can. The exam does work on a Mac. You do need to be using the latest Chrome browser, whichever type of computer you are using. I do want to recommend that through the ProProctor user guide, which is linked on our website, so that is Prometric's user guide. There is some really helpful information. It's actually in like the back half of that document about specific for Mac users. So I just want to point out, I mean, everyone should really read through that document to just understand some specific technical requirements, but particularly if you're testing on a Mac, make sure you get to the second half of that document to review any specific technical requirements or setup things that you might need to do for your Mac.
Okay, thank you. Jared, as COVID cases keep on rising and centers are closing, will there be a change in the rolling clock?
At this time, I would say there might be. It is very unfortunate that, yes, there are more and more local mandates going into place that are impacting appointments that are scheduled in physical test centers. And depending on where things go with the pandemic and closures and exam availability, we may extend the rolling clock even more. We honestly, at this time, we don't know. The really good news is that the past rolling clock extensions that were put in place back in March of 2020 were for 15 months. So every exam is safe until May of 2021. We will certainly be monitoring as we get into the end of this calendar year and into the start of the next one. And we may do another rolling clock extension if things get worse.
Right. Thank you. Michelle, what happens if my doorbell rings or there's another unexpected disruption? Will I be disqualified?
Well, that's a great question. So if your doorbell rings, but that is in another room, then, I mean, that's background noise. Your proctor might ask you, hey, what was that noise? But assuming that the delivery person isn't coming into your physical testing space, that won't count as an interruption. But it is important to bear in mind that the space that you're testing in should have a door that should be closed. And you should not be receiving any interruptions. And so that does include interruptions from young kids, from your dog, from just anything as benign as it might sound. Prometric does maintain that strict policy. And again, that's just from a security standpoint that you can't have any physical interruptions into your space.
Now, and I'll add on to that. This is not, again, the proctor wants to help you complete this exam. And the readiness agent wants to help you go through the check-in process. So if I was in the middle of taking an exam right now and my wife didn't realize or forgot that I was doing that, and she all of a sudden just walked into the office, it's not like the proctor is going to be like, well, Jared, you're done. Like, that's not the way this is going to work. So if somebody comes in or your pet comes bursting through the door, the reality is what you should do is let the proctor know. Because again, you don't see the proctor while you're testing, you're just taking the exam. So you can simply look at your camera and say, oh, excuse me, my wife just walked in and I don't know what's going on. You have a couple of options. You could say, oh, let me go on break and resolve the issue. Like, let's say you have a toddler that is having a meltdown, right? And you're like, trust me, I know, I have raised 2 children. You may then say, you know what? Let me just get to a point where I'm going to take a break and then you can go deal with that. Or what you could say is, oh, here, let me just get my dog out of the room. I could get up, get my dog out of the room, stay on camera the whole time. Proctor's not going to end my exam. I can close the door, I can come back, and I can reconnect to testing. So we don't want you to be nervous and think that like one doorbell or one knock is somehow going to invalidate your test experience.
Okay, thank you. Jared, I'm gonna give this one to you. If you test at a test center and take a break, will your questions still get locked after you come back?
They will. The exam navigation function for all candidates is changing on Monday, December 14th. So candidates at the test center will experience the same break functionality, the unlimited breaks, the full access though when they're on breaks, and the items will lock when they come back. So again, if you haven't had a chance, please do go click through the new demonstration exam. You can play with this functionality and see exactly how it works. And I will give my plug because I will do it every time I can. Use the Mark for Review tool. It is fantastic when you're taking the exam to just mark items for review. And that way, when you're ready to go on break, you can go back and only review those. It's a much quicker, much more efficient way of checking your work before going on break.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, are there specific types of external webcams that are required, allowed, or not allowed?
Well, I think the main requirement about an external webcam is that it has the ability to autofocus. So some webcams have a fixed focus that they are only made to focus on the depth of field from your screen to right here where you're sitting. But as Jared mentioned earlier, he has his ID on his desk, and that is because as part of the security check-in, you will be required to show your ID to your readiness agent. So your camera needs to be able to focus on that close-up range to be able to read the small text on your ID. So having a camera that can autofocus at those different depths of field is really the best way to make sure that you can get through that security process.
Yeah, and then we just saw Jared just do that ID show and it autofocus. So that was a good example. Thank you, Jared.
Yeah. And again, that's something where your readiness agent is there to work with you. So, you know, if it's not quite working, your agent will probably say, okay, wait, back it up another, okay, hold it there for a second, you know, give the camera time to actually do that focusing. They want to get you checked in for your exam. So, you know, that's something if you're buying a webcam, you know, take a look at the specs for it and see, you know, look for that autofocus feature. But, you know, again, your security agent will, you know, help you get through that process with your ID.
Okay. So I think this one's a room clarification question. So Jared, I thought you couldn't have windows in your space. Is that true?
So you can have windows in your space. You don't have to like be trapped in a closet. What Prometric is suggesting is that what the proctor is going to be watching for, so you understand this, they're going to be watching for somebody who has like windows behind them, because then in theory, there could be somebody outside the window, right, with a super camera trying to zoom in on the screen. And that's what they're trying to avoid. So like I said, I have converted a bedroom into a home office. And yeah, there were windows in it. And this is a perfectly acceptable place to take an exam. I have taken multiple online exams in the last few weeks in this room.
Okay. Thank you. Michelle, with these online exams, do you see the proctor's face watching you the whole time, or are they in the background?
You will not see the proctor during your exam. So if that hopefully makes candidates feel a little bit comfortable, you know someone is there, but you can't see them seeing you. The person that you will see on screen is your readiness agent. So that's the person that Jared and I keep referencing, who is going to help you get through that initial check-in process, checking your environment, checking your ID. That person you will see on the screen. But once you finish that check-in process, then they will say, thank you very much. Please, you know, you're in the queue to wait for your proctor. That readiness agent will go away. The proctor will generally send you a quick chat message or maybe speak to you through the audio connection and just say, hi, I'm your proctor. Are you ready to go? You'll say yes, and then you're off and running with your exam, but you don't actually see the proctor. Know that you are able to reach the proctor, again, by either speaking or using the chat tool that's provided to you through the Proctor interface.
Got it. Thank you. Jared, can we copy and paste into the calculator?
You're not able to copy and paste into or from the calculator at this time. We have gotten that feedback from several candidates, you know, that have been playing with the demonstration exam. We have reached out to the software developers to see if that's something that they can make work. It is, copying and pasting can be a bit of a security challenge, right? With a licensure exam. So there's a tendency to lock everything down as a default. But we have been able to enable, let's say there's a question on screen and there's some key information in like what we call the stem or the question part. You can actually copy that text and paste it in as text into the whiteboard if you want to. That's a way to sort of speed some things up. But right now, the functionality to copy from the calculator into the whiteboard is not something that can be done.
Okay. Michelle, if we have multiple monitors, is that an issue?
Why, yes, it is. You are only allowed to test on a single monitor setup. So if you are testing on a desktop computer, fantastic. You've got your one monitor, your one computer, you hook them up, you're ready to go. I know some of us at work are used to having multiple monitors set up. You will need to unplug those other monitors and make sure that you put those away, not connected to your computer any longer. If you are testing on a laptop, as we were mentioning before, and you'd rather use that larger monitor, you'll simply close your laptop lid. Make sure that your monitor is then connected to your laptop just with a standard HDMI cable. You will need to make sure you have a separate keyboard and mouse, because obviously you won't be able to use the keyboard and trackpad on your laptop with the lid closed. So that's really the requirement there. Again, just the one monitor that's allowed. I feel like there's something else I was going to add about that. Jared, was there any other tips about monitors?
Well, I mean, part of it is, let's say you've got like this super rock star, computer setup, because, you're doing architecture and you're multi-screening it with Revit and other applications all day. You don't have to like get rid of your second monitor, because what's going to happen is the Prometric software isn't intelligent enough that it's going to sense that you're running dual monitors during the check-in procedure, and it is going to disable one of your monitors and take you down to a single. So I've had this happen because we were trying all these different things early on. What you don't want to do is have it disable the one monitor you actually care about. So my suggestion would be, if you have a dual monitor system on your desk and you don't want to take that apart, which I totally understand, I would simply unplug the second monitor, because that way, when I turn on my system and I log into Prometric, Prometric reads only one monitor and it stays live the whole time.
Another important setup piece there is that docking stations are not allowed. So I know some of us are used to popping that laptop into a docking station and everything else connects through that. So know that the docking station will not be allowed. So that might require some reconfiguration if now you need to get that cord to have that direct connection between your laptop and the monitor. So that would be one other thing to really think about in advance.
Cool. Okay, so we have another room setup question. So I'm going to give this one to you, Jared. If you plan to test in a conference room at work, but the room has a wall-mounted TV monitor or TV, does that TV monitor need to be removed?
No, that would be crazy. Like, you don't want to take that wall-mounted TV off the wall. So one of the suggestions we would say, though, let's say, totally can envision this, right? You're going to be sitting at a computer. Behind you in this conference room is your normal GoToMeeting webinar setup, where you've got the TV with the camera above it, all of the normal setup. Now, what's going to happen is when the proctor is not going to appreciate the fact that there's a camera over your shoulder staring at you. So honestly, the easiest thing to do would be to have some sort of a sheet, canvas, or something like that, and just cover it, because that's what the proctor would ask you to do during the readiness part of it. You might as well just do that in advance. Go ahead, just take a sheet, cover it up. Same thing if you're in an office that has windows in it, or glass doors, right? The full glass doors are quite common, but it's situated in a way that it provides visibility into you working. I would just in advance take a sheet and cover it up. Honestly, not a bad idea to put a sign on the outside of your door too that just says like, do not disturb until 5 p.m., something like that.
Michelle, am I being recorded at any time while I'm taking proctored exams?
You are being recorded the whole time that you are taking that online proctored exam, both audio and video. And in fact, that happens at the test center as well. So know that either way, you are being recorded. That information is included in the various information that's provided to you about the exam. And actually, before you start your exam, there is that agreement that you need to sign off on, that you understand that you're being recorded. And that is just a standard part of licensure exams at a test center or online proctored.
Cool. So we have another room setup question, Jared.
Mhm.
So this person says, I would be testing in the home office, so there are a lot of bookshelves with books. Would I need to remove them all?
Same advice that I gave for the big screen TV with the camera. Just cover your bookcases with a sheet in advance. Because again, I will say, admittedly, from a proctor perspective, they see a bookcase full of books and they get nervous because to them, that seems like a perfect place for somebody to try to hide something. So again, much cleaner. Just go ahead, cover that in advance, and you'll be just fine. Do not move all your books.
Okay. Michelle, what should I do if I get COVID within 3 days of my in-person exam?
So it sounds like we're talking about 3 days before your exam, meaning that you are now within that window where you're not allowed to reschedule. Obviously, we don't want you going to a test center if you have COVID, or frankly, if you just have the flu. So be sure to just give Ncarb a call about that. And we will work with you on that one-on-one basis, understanding that particular situation. And we'll just work with you to, to accommodate the fact that you won't be able to test at your original appointment time.
Right. And as Michelle said, that goes for, any illness, right? Like we are going into flu season as well. So, and as she mentioned, or some other major family emergency, contact customer service. We will work with you on getting that appointment rescheduled to a different time.
Okay. So Jared, what exactly needs to be on screen while checking in with a proctor? This is a two-part question. Are we going to have to show the bottom of our jeans and empty our pockets, etc., similar to in-person Prometric exams?
You are. It's the check-in procedure for online proctoring is actually quite similar to the check-in procedure for in the test center. So when I'm dealing with that readiness agent, the readiness agent's going to go through the normal flow. One of the things, like for myself, I wear reading glasses. So they would inspect my glasses, just like at a Prometric test center. I know you take your glasses off, you set them down, and they look at them. When you're testing online, I take my glasses off and I have to hold them up to the camera, and they make sure there's no hidden cameras in there. I stand up, I pull my pockets out. I do not wear a jacket when I test. When I test online, I make my world as easy as possible. And so like sweatpants are great, casual sweater or a shirt, and just relax and enjoy taking the test. But you will go through the same basic check-in. You have to make sure there's nothing hidden in your pockets or things like that.
I think it's also a good reminder, don't wear jewelry, right? I mean, that's another thing. I believe eyeglasses and wedding rings are allowed, and that's really about it at the test center. So follow those same requirements at home. Just because you're in your home doesn't mean that those requirements are relaxed. And so again, simplifying it, it's just one less thing to inspect if you don't have it with you.
Okay. So Michelle, this one's for you. Can you use earplugs or hearing protection in your home while testing, like you can already use in testing facilities?
No, you cannot use earplugs in your home because we need to make sure that you're not getting some feed through your ears that are in that setting where we can't be there with you. So I think just thinking about the acoustics in your home environment, and creating that quiet testing environment for yourself is just part of that setup.
Okay. Jared, do we still get immediate feedback after taking the exam?
So in the short term, the answer is going to be no, because we haven't talked about it yet, but we have messaged that when the new exam format launches on the 14th with the lower number of questions and things like that, we have to establish a new cut score. And so we can't give you provisional feedback in the test center because we haven't established the cut score. But once we do establish the cut score for each division, then we will go back to having provisional feedback in the test center. And the expectation right now, we're watching exam volumes that have been scheduled for the last several months. As we've mentioned before, if we figure it's going to take about 4 weeks to go and set the cut score for each of the divisions, It really does depend on volumes. Once we get 400 administrations per division, then our psychometricians do all of the analysis. Recommendations work through our volunteer structure to establish what that cut score is going to be. We immediately then will set that into the system. The system will then release all of the past score reports, plus any future score reports on the regular schedule.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, let's see. Do you need to go through the whole check-in process again after taking a break?
Yes, I believe you don't need to show your ID again. Is that correct, Jared?
Yeah, there's some, the identification, verification, those types of things are already taken care of. You have to do those once. But when you do come back from break, yes, it's going to be the quick show your pockets. Because again, right, as far as the proctor is concerned, you're off camera. So they want to make sure you haven't snuck anything in after break.
Right.
Hopefully that should go faster for your environment scan, because any issues that you had at the beginning, you've resolved them by this point. So hopefully that should be a quicker process. But it's important to remember that you have to allow time for that, right? Like just like at the test center, you have to allow time to, maybe there's someone in front of you at the TCA's desk, you have to make sure that you sign that log, and be able to get back into the testing room. So similarly with the online proctored delivery, just make sure that you give yourself a couple minutes to go through that check-in process when you're coming back from your break.
Yeah, and a good point to remember is that when you do step out on break, if you're taking an online exam, your camera is still rolling. So you're still being monitored in essence, with the space, I guess, is being monitored. So, that's where, again, it speeds it up dramatically, because you're not doing the whole room check anymore, because you haven't done anything to your room, because you literally walked out, did nothing, and then walked back in.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both for that. So Jared, this one's for you. Are Prometric test centers required to follow social distancing rules?
The answer on that one is it really does depend on the local mandates that are in place. So if there's a local mandate that says they do that, absolutely they're doing it. If the local mandate doesn't say that they're doing it, it's not necessary that they have to. So there are some test centers right now that are not social distancing because mandates are not in place to do that. There are test centers that are social distancing.
Okay. This one's an interesting question. So this one's for Michelle. Will all proctors be based in the US?
No, many proctors are based in the US, but not all. And that is why we can offer online proctor delivery 24 hours a day.
Cool, it's good to know. Jared, this one's for you. What if our webcam doesn't have an autofocus feature that was recently required?
If your camera cannot do an autofocus, then this is something you're going to want to verify, because you don't want to get to the situation where you think you're ready to take your exam 5 minutes from now, and all of a sudden you can't make it through the check-in procedure. So what I would suggest you do is check your camera's capability. If you have an older camera or just a camera you've had all the time, pull it out of the drawer. Kind of do what I just did, which is, go into any sort of camera application that you have, whether it's a Zoom meeting or anything else, and print off something like a driver's license, and then hold it up to the camera and make sure that it can focus, because that's what really matters. Is that camera needs the ability to focus on that driver's license, your ID, up close, but at the same time, not. Because if I were to hold my driver's license here, there's no way you can read it. So I would say test your camera. You can do that through any camera app, Zoom meeting, GoToMeeting, Teams, whatever, Skype.
Okay. Michelle, well, this one's a popular question. Can you explain what a cut score is?
Cut score. So the cut score, very simply, is the threshold that you have to pass in order to pass the exam. So, that's all it is. It is truly just a number, and it refers to the number of questions that you need to answer correctly in order to pass. And if you answer that number or more, you passed. If you answer correctly, I should say, if your number of correct answers is less than the cut score, then you'll receive a fail on that division. As Jared mentioned, we'll have the cut score process. He detailed that earlier, and that really is to set what that cut score is. It's going to vary by division, and it might even vary for each form within a division. And that's just part of our standard process of equating the cut scores. In other words, making sure that every candidate's experience in a particular division is at that same level of difficulty so that no candidates are at an advantage over another candidate.
Okay. So Jared, this one's for you. Will the info in the whiteboard remain after the break?
It will. So anything you put into the whiteboard remains in the whiteboard until you delete it, or at the very end, because I will say when you do end your exam, the whiteboard content gets deleted automatically.
Okay. Michelle, can I use a wireless mouse?
You can. If your mouse works off of a battery, I would advise you to have fresh batteries in your mouse. Same goes for a keyboard, just to make sure that those don't croak during your exam. Other than that, any type of mouse is acceptable.
Cool. Jared, another testing setup question. I live in a small apartment. Is it okay to set up the test from my kitchen?
You could, as long as nobody else is in your kitchen, or if you're in a studio, let's say a studio apartment, right? It really is about, being in a private testing area. Now, the reality is if you're in a kitchen, I don't know what your kitchen's like. Maybe you have this super awesome, very clean, modern kitchen. Realize again, I can imagine more things being on counters in kitchens. So again, kind of set your space up appropriately so that when you're ready to start and you're going through the readiness agent, the counters are clean, things like that, because that's what you're going to want to do. If you have a bunch of stuff out on your counter, the proctor is going to immediately start kind of wondering, like, what's all that stuff?
Okay. Michelle, can we use a stand-up desk while testing?
You sure can. Same requirements about your testing environment apply, but if you are more comfortable standing, just remember that you're going to be standing for several hours throughout the course of your exam. So that I know sometimes people have the adjustable height desks. If that's what you have and you want to be able to have that option, I would just recommend letting the proctor know, like, hey, I'm going to be lowering my standing height desk now to sitting level, just so the proctor doesn't kind of wonder what's happening. But beyond that, the standing height desk is totally fine.
Okay. Yeah, you answered my follow-up question because I was going to say, what happens if someone wants to lower their desk? But you kind of already answered it.
And the same thing is, sometimes you don't need to actually take a break, but you just need to like stretch or just kind of like twist or wiggle a little bit just to take like that 10-second break before you move on to the next item. So, I mean, again, it's a good idea to just let your proctor know what's happening, because otherwise they might then send you a message to say, what in the heck is going on there? So, if you do just need to like stand up for a second and stretch and then sit back down again, just let your proctor know, so that they don't raise any, alarms or anything. And so then you'll be able to just keep on testing.
Okay, great. Jared, can I have other applications open while I'm taking an online proctored exam?
Absolutely not. And actually, that's one of the things that Prometric software does. If you have other applications open, when you start launching the ProProctor application, it is going to go ahead and turn those off. And that, obviously makes sense from a security perspective. So by the time your exam launches in an online delivery environment, the only application that's really running is your operating system, but the only application you have access to is the proctoring application, which delivers the exam to you.
Got it. Michelle, are the locations of in-person exams changing? If so, when is this happening?
Okay, so I think that this question is looking ahead to when we switch test delivery vendors to PSI. So some of you might have seen some information about that. We currently deliver with Prometric. We are going to stay with Prometric as we launch the online proctoring option next summer. So we don't have a specific date. I can just say summer 2021. We are planning to switch to PSI as our delivery vendor. And we will continue to deliver online proctored option and test center options, but through the new vendor. So I can tell you that, yes, for many candidates, your test center will be moving to a new location when you switch. It's just like, changing doctors. Your new doctor is going to be in a different place than your old doctor. And we'll have more information about test center locations early 2021, so candidates can start to become more informed about that. I can say that for some candidates, they might find that they actually have to travel a longer distance to get to their test center. For other candidates, they might find that there's a test center a lot closer to them than what they experienced with Prometric. So I would just say to candidates, yes, there's going to be changes, but stay tuned. Not something to really get into the details of quite yet. It's still some number of months away, and we will send more information as it becomes available for you.
Great, thanks. So the next question is for Jared. Can you take the ARE anywhere in the world?
You really could take the ARE anywhere in the world. Now, what I will say is, in looking at some of the legal implications around the globe, there are some areas of this globe where there are laws in place that says somebody cannot be recorded just because they have super strict privacy laws. And so in those areas, then you really shouldn't be taking an online proctored exam because you are going to be recorded, per audio and video. But there's nothing that's going to stop you from taking the exam, whether you're in Europe, in North America, or anywhere else.
Okay. Michelle, has the number of questions changed for the divisions?
Yes, every division has seen a reduction in items. Again, this is with the forms starting Monday in test centers and online proctoring. I think it's about a 15 to 20 item reduction across every division. And you can see those new item counts in our ARE 5.0 guidelines that's on our website. Know that the amount of time that you're given for each division has also reduced, but only slightly. So proportionally, you actually have a bit more time per item because there is a greater reduction in that number of items than in the amount of time for that particular division. So be sure to check that out, again, in our ARE 5.0 guidelines.
Okay, great. Jared, can I see case study references without opening a case study item?
You cannot. The only way to access a case study reference is while you're viewing at least one of the case study items.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, do you have to kill any antivirus software to run the proctoring app?
No, you shouldn't need to, but you might need to make some tweaks inside your antivirus software. So certainly not recommending that you get rid of antivirus software generally, but that's some important information to think about ahead of time. And again, I'll refer everyone to the Prometric Pro Proctor user guide, which has a lot of that technical information. And we link to that from our website. You can also find that on Prometric's website. Be sure to read through that carefully. There's also a link inside that user guide to a really helpful Prometric e-help website that has a lot of just FAQs and various documents that really get into some detail about if you have antivirus software. Sometimes there might be more stringent software, say like if you're testing on a corporate, your company computer, for instance. I mentioned Mac computers earlier. So give yourself time to read through that. Make sure you download that Pro Proctor software in advance and really read through the recommendations on antivirus software. Again, just so that on test day, when you're trying to launch, you're not held up by some issue with that. I'll just say, especially if you're testing at work and maybe you're using a work computer, maybe you don't have admin privileges on that work computer, that's something to really notify your company IT help for support, just getting your computer ready.
Yeah, I will add to that. The other thing is, if you're going to use especially a corporate laptop, if your corporation uses a firewall system to separate your company from your connections to the World Wide Web, that can get in the way. So be careful, understand that all typical antivirus softwares have not had a problem. That doesn't mean your company doesn't have some super awesome, top of the line, oh my gosh, I can't believe the many layers of security. Those could actually get in the way. So do be aware of those issues.
Okay, thank you. So Jared, this one's going for you. Are all state boards accepting the online proctored version of the exam?
Yes, the benefit is, I mean, the ARE is still the ARE, regardless of whether somebody takes it on site or online. It's the same forms. We've been throwing that term forms around, right? The set of questions candidates get. A candidate in the test center on, December 21st and a candidate online on December 21st could be taking the exact same set of questions at the exact same time. And as far as the state boards are concerned, the ARE is the ARE. It's scored the same way. It's the same.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, are the proctors employed by Ncarb or by the test center?
So I think we're talking about online proctoring.
Yes.
And so they are employed by Prometric.
Okay, straightforward. Jared, are there any restrictions on wall prints or pictures for testing at home?
I have not experienced any. Like I said, I've tested in this environment several times. You'll notice there is a large print behind me. I've never been questioned on that. I'm not going to say it may not happen to you, right? It really is going to depend on the proctor. It's going to depend on the artwork that you have. If they feel uncomfortable about it for some reason, they may ask you to, take it down or cover it.
Okay. Michelle, there are multiple questions still about, okay. So basically, can you just inform us about dual monitors again, and just like break it down a little more for our candidates?
Okay.
I think the candidate really wanted to emphasize on that. So I think we should take time to break it down a little more.
Okay. So, okay, so I think breaking it down, and it's very root, is that when you are taking your exam, you are only allowed to look at your exam on one monitor, right? As Jared mentioned, you might have another monitor connected. The ProProctor software will turn off your other monitor, right? Just the same way that ProProctor is actually going to overtake, I don't know if that's too strong of a word, but the ProProctor is going to take control of your computer. So you will not be able to use any other applications that are running. It will maximize in your screen. And again, shut down those other monitors. Obviously, as soon as you exit the ProProctor software, everything comes right back up to where it was. But the main thing is that during your exam, you can only be viewing one monitor. So if you are very particular and you specifically, and actually, for instance, in my setup right now, I am looking at you through my laptop screen. I have a second monitor right here, pointing to it. You all can't see it. So if I specifically want to be able to test on that larger monitor, not on my small laptop screen, then that's something that I might want to just adjust in my computer settings ahead of time so that when ProProctor comes on, it doesn't auto select which monitor it's going to keep on versus turn off. So there might be some settings that you want to adjust on your computer ahead of time. Or as Jared mentioned, you can just unplug the monitor that you don't want to use, and then that no longer becomes an issue. If you have just two, maybe you've got side-by-side 23-inch monitors, and you've got this really great setup, maybe you've got three 23-inch monitors all arrayed around your desk, make sure that where your external webcam is, that's sitting on top of the monitor that you're going to be using, so that that camera is looking directly at you as you are looking at the exam on the monitor. Jared, are there any other kind of highlights of monitors that you want to?
No, it really just comes down to you get to use one monitor, and it's worth it. I would say, I think it's worth it to spend the 5 to 10 minutes to just, move an HDMI cable around, plug it in direct, and that way you're going to have no issues. I would much rather spend 5 minutes ahead of time solving that problem than getting into the exam and all of a sudden it shows up on why is it over there all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you both. I definitely appreciate that. I'm sure candidates do as well for talking a little more about monitors. So the next question I'm going to give to Jared. Are we allowed to leave the room when taking a break?
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons we understood that. What's the point of taking a break in my office? If I'm testing and I want to take a break, you're going to see me get up, walk out that door. I'll probably close the door behind me, and then I'm going to go into my kitchen. I'm going to get a snack. I'm going to then come back a few minutes later, or go use the bathroom, do whatever, and then come back. So that's the whole point, is you go on break, you can navigate freely, wherever you're testing. And the same thing at a test center. So if you're at a test center and you're on break, before, as of right now, it's like, only touch food and water in your locker, don't leave the building. There's all these restrictions. In the future, it's like, if you're on break at a test center, like pop open your phone. Like, that's fine. If you need to call your family or call your work, do whatever. You can't do that today, you can do that in the future.
Another nice thing too, Jared, again, whether you're testing from home or testing in a test center, you got 30 minutes or even 45 minutes in a couple divisions. If you need to just go out for a walk, you can, just walk around the block, get some fresh air. Maybe you just, want to just get completely outside of the building. The sunshine kind of helps perk you up. That's an option too. You have that time available to you. And if you want to take 30 minutes break all at once, you can totally do that.
Okay. So we're almost out of time, but I think we're gonna answer a couple more questions. So Michelle, are the case studies shorter?
The case studies, I will say there are fewer items associated with them. I believe we're at 7 to 9 items is what candidates can expect to see for each case study. They will see 2 case studies within their exam. So the case studies themselves are going to be about the same as what you've been used to seeing for the last several years in the exam. There are just fewer items that go with them now.
Okay, thank you. Jared, can you copy and paste into the whiteboard from questions?
So we have been able to copy content from like the question itself into the whiteboard. So the way I've done that is I'll, let's say there's some phrase that's in the question, I'll highlight that. I'll do a Control-C, copies it to my clipboard. I then go into the whiteboard, I add text, right? That little word text comes up and it's highlighted so you can add. Once I hit that, then I go and I paste, and then the content is in the whiteboard. So you cannot, though, I will say, you can't really copy graphics. Like, you're not gonna be able to grab an image and paste that into the whiteboard and sketch on top of it. You can highlight text and copy that in.
Okay. And I think we've already answered this one, but it doesn't hurt to answer one more time. When can I schedule an online exam?
I'll take that one. You can schedule an online exam as early as Monday morning. That scheduler will open up to you. Again, as I mentioned earlier in this Ncarb Live, you won't see any exam times until several days out. But you see a time slot that you like, feel free to sign up for that, and you will be all ready to go with your online proctored exam.
Yeah. And I will add, right now, all of the programming in the software is that we will have the option to schedule online appointments available no later than 10 a.m. Eastern on Monday the 14th. So if you want to rush in, I will say, don't feel like you honestly need to. You're going to be surprised how much availability is out there in online proctored scheduling compared to on-site. But we are going to have it turned on before 10 a.m. But if you want, go take a look. If thousands and thousands of candidates do rush in for that reason, you may experience the waiting queue that's happened in Prometric recently. Some other exams have launched with big volumes, and so then there gets a queue created. So just hang out in the queue for a little bit. I've had to do that myself, scheduling. So give it 5, 10, maybe even 15 minutes, and you'll work your way through the queue.
Great. Right. So we're getting toward the end of the webinar. So before we sign off, can you each share a key takeaway you'd like viewers to walk away with?
I guess I'll go first. Again, on this one, I think my key takeaway is, actually, I'm going to kind of repeat what I mentioned earlier. Just get your space set up and ready to go. We've got a lot of great resources on our website. Jared was mentioning covering up bookcases earlier. We have a video that we posted up there pretty recently of one of the staff here at Ncarb who has crazy filled bookcases, and really showed how he got all of those covered up. Set up his space similar to what Jared just showed us during the Ncarb Live. So I think that just kind of take it one area at a time if you're testing in sort of a cluttered area, but the more that you can declutter and get yourself set up, the smoother your test will go when you are ready to test.
Okay, And Jared?
Well, so I want to jump in and answer one quick question that I see coming in that's still hanging out there. And it asks about a VPN. And so having worked with VPNs, what I will say is if you typically operate using a VPN environment, that is also something that can create limitations in connecting with Proctor. So you're better to not work inside of a VPN environment. You're better to just be running, the native, operating system on the computer. So I want to answer that question from a technical perspective. And then I guess my last thing to candidates is I would also say preparation, like Michelle said, is important because the more you simplify your space, the easier the flow is going to be for you overall. But also I don't want you to get like overly concerned that you think like any little thing that happens in the Proctor is somehow going to turn your exam off. That is not the experience that we want for you. That is not the experience I know Prometric wants for you. Like this is life. Somebody might knock on your door. You have a large pet. It may come running into your room. That's not going to immediately like, oh my gosh, your exam's over. It's not going to happen. So they're there to work with you. We're here to work with you. If something happens and your exam isn't able to be delivered or it gets turned off, reach out to Ncarb customer service. We're going to look into the issue, and we will work through resolution on you. But based on some of the questions we're seeing, I think people are becoming overly nervous about how strict the Proctor is. Yes, this is serious. This is a licensure exam. So, security matters. Take it seriously. Go through the check-in process. Be professional and courteous to the Proctor. Answer their questions. But in the end, if you have an issue or somebody comes bursting in, just engage with the Proctor. Like they're a human being too. They understand what you're going through.
Alrighty, well, thank you all for joining us. As a final reminder, all ARE changes that go into effect on December 14th will impact candidates whether they're testing online or at a test center. If we didn't get to your question, please feel free to leave it in the comments section on YouTube, on our blog, or contact our customer relations department for one-on-one assistance. For more details on online proctoring, please visit ncarb.org or the ARE 5.0 community. See you all next time.